Donald J. Trump becomes the 47th president-elect of the United States. Trump victory speech and Kamala Harris concession speech. The world leaders respond. How Vice President Kamala Harris lost and Trump, the first 100 days. Donald Trump wins a sweeping victory of 295 to 226 electoral votes, winning the Senate, most of the House and governors, and let us not forget the Supreme Court.
Well, I want to thank you all very much. This is great. These are our friends. We have thousands of friends on this incredible movement. This was a movement like nobody's ever seen before. And frankly, this was, I believe, the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country. And we overcame obstacles that nobody thought possible, and it is now clear that we've achieved the most incredible political thing. Look what happened. Is this crazy? But it's a political victory. Our country has never seen before, nothing like this. I want to thank the American people for the extraordinary honor of being elected your 47th president and your 45th president. And every citizen, I will fight for you, for your family, and your future. Every single day, I will be fighting for you, and with every breath in my body, I will not rest until we have delivered the strong, safe, and prosperous America that our children deserve and that you deserve. This will truly be the golden age of America. That's what we have to have. This is a magnificent victory for the American people that will allow us to make America great again. Oh,
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you all. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you. So let me say, and I love you back. And I love you back. So let me say, my heart is full today. My heart is full today, full of gratitude for the trust you have placed in me, full of love for our country, and full of resolve. The outcome of this election is not what we wanted, not what we fought for, not what we voted for, but hear me when I say, the light of America's promise will always burn bright. As long as we never give up, and as long as we keep fighting. To my beloved Doug and our family, I love you so very much. To President Biden and Dr. Biden, thank you for your faith and support. To Governor Walz and the Walz family, I know your service to our nation will continue. And to my extraordinary team, to the volunteers who gave so much of themselves, to the poll workers and the local election officials, I thank you all. Look, I am so proud of the race we ran, and the way we ran it, Over the 107 days of this campaign, We have been intentional about building community and building coalitions, bringing people together from every walk of life and background, united by love of country with enthusiasm and joy in our fight for America's future. And we did it with the knowledge that we all have so much more in common than what separates us. Now, I know folks are feeling and experiencing a range of emotions right now. I get it. But we must accept the results of this election. Earlier today, I spoke with President-elect Trump and congratulated him on his victory. I also told him that we will help him and his team with their transition, and that we will engage in a peaceful transfer of power. A fundamental principle of American democracy is that when we lose an election, we accept the results. That principle, as much as any other, distinguishes democracy from monarchy or tyranny. And anyone who seeks the public trust must honor it. At the same time, in our nation, we owe loyalty not to a president or a party, but to the Constitution of the United States. And loyalty to our conscience and to our God. My allegiance to all three is why I am here to say, while I concede this election, I do not concede the fight that fueled this campaign. To the young people who are watching, it is... I love you. To the young people who are watching, it is okay to feel sad and disappointed, but please know it's going to be okay. On the campaign, I would often say, when we fight, we win. But here's the thing. Sometimes the fight takes a while. That doesn't mean we won't win. That doesn't mean we won't win. The important thing is don't ever give up. Don't ever give up. Don't ever stop trying to make the world a better place. You have power. You have power. And don't you ever listen when anyone tells you something is impossible because it has never been done before. You have the capacity to do extraordinary good in the world. And so to everyone who is watching, do not despair. This is not a time to throw up our hands. This is a time to roll up our sleeves. This is a time to organize, to mobilize, and to stay engaged for the sake of freedom and justice and the future that we all know we can build together. Look, many of you know I started out as a prosecutor, and throughout my career, I saw people at some of the worst times in their lives. People who had suffered great harm and great pain, and yet found within themselves the strength and the courage and the resolve to take the stand, to take a stand, to fight for justice, to fight for themselves, to fight for others. So let their courage be our inspiration. Let their determination be our charge. And I'll close with this. There's an adage an historian once called a law of history. true of every society across the ages. The adage is, only when it is dark enough can you see the stars. I know many people feel like we are entering a dark time, but for the benefit of us all, I hope that is not the case. But here's the thing, America, if it is, let us fill the sky with the light of a brilliant, brilliant billion of stars. The light of optimism, of faith, of truth, and service. HU. And may that work guide us, even in the face of setbacks, toward the extraordinary promise of the United States of America. I thank you all. May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America. I thank you all.
Sicher wird vieles unter einer von Donald Trump geführten Regierung anders. Das hat Donald Trump auch immer öffentlich klargemacht. Unsere Botschaften sind klar. Erstens, Deutschland bleibt ein verlässlicher transatlantischer Partner. Wir wissen um den Beitrag, den wir für diese Partnerschaft leisten und auch in Zukunft leisten werden. Das gilt auch mit Blick auf die Bedrohung, die Russland nach Auffassung aller NATO-Allierten för die Sicherheit im euroatlantischen Raum.
Ja, det är klart att europeisk säkerhet har i 80 år varit också ett amerikanskt kärnintresse. Jag har full respekt för att USA tycker att Ryssland är i mycket hög grad en fråga för Europas säkerhet som vi inte kan abdikera från och hoppas att USA ska lösa åt Europa, för att karikera något. Men jag är helt övertygad om att Ryssland också, ett Ryssland som lär sig att man kan annektera europeiska demokratier, är ett globalt hot. Sen är det inte det enda globala hotet.
Le président de la République, vous le savez, a eu l'occasion d'adresser ses félicitations à Donald Trump et d'échanger à ce sujet avec le chancelier allemand. Ils se connaissent, ils ont déjà travaillé ensemble pendant 4 ans et le président de la République a précisé lors de ce Conseil des ministres que notre rôle n'était pas de commenter le choix des peuples souverains, mais qu'il fallait bien, en revanche, un réveil stratégique.
Donald Trump, once again elected to the White House, leaders around the world congratulating him on his historic comeback. But there is one leader who apparently has no plans to congratulate him. Russia's Vladimir Putin, according to the Kremlin. CNN's Nick Robertson joins us now with more on this. Nick, good morning. What are we learning?
Yeah, this is coming from Dmitry Peskov, the President Vladimir Putin's spokesperson at the Kremlin. And he says this, when asked the question about why hasn't Vladimir Putin congratulated President-elect Donald Trump, and he said this: let's not forget that we're talking about an unfriendly country that is both directly and indirectly involved in a war against our state. So that is the Russian position on that. Now, Peskov was pressed by the journalists on his daily press briefing phone call. Well, isn't this going to put you in a bad and worse position with the United States? Because it's very clear, the implication in the question, that President Trump likes to get these congratulations early. We've heard from the British just earlier today. We've heard from many European leaders earlier today congratulating President-elect Donald Trump. And Peskov's answer was this, and he said, look, the relationship is really bad. How can it get any worse than it is already? And this is clearly a reference to something else that Peskov talked about in that phone call with journalists, saying that the United States is in a position to end the war in Ukraine, where Russia considers itself to be essentially in a war confronted by the United States, involving the United States. So the Kremlin's position on this, I think, gives us a hint about what Donald Trump has spoken about previously, about ending the war in Ukraine in the matter of a day. Russia's position on this is clearly going to be tough. And as Peskov went on to say in this phone conversation, that this issue over Ukraine is not going to be ended quickly. That is clearly going to be a tough road ahead for President-elect Donald Trump.
Indeed, it is. And of course, we're seeing much different reaction from the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at this hour. Nick Robertson for us in London. Nick, thank you very much for that report. So as Nick was just talking about, leaders around the world, America's allies and its enemies, bracing for a second Trump presidency and a dramatic shift in both the style and substance of American foreign policy.
Reaction has been pouring in from around the world to Donald Trump's Election Day victory, with U.S. allies congratulating the 47th president. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer congratulated Trump on his election victory, calling it, quote, historic, and said he looked forward to the years ahead.
French President Emmanuel Macron also congratulating the president-elect on his return to the White House, saying he's ready to work with him again.
While Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called the friendship between his country and the U.S. the envy of the world, while congratulating Trump.
Our Holly Williams is following global reaction to the U.S. election for...
Hey there, Lana and Zach. Well, look, many leaders of U.S. allies have sent fairly standard messages of congratulations to President-elect Trump. You just read some of them out now. But here in Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is notably enthusiastic, calling Trump's victory history's greatest comeback and saying, quote, this is a huge victory. His office says the two spoke for 20 minutes tonight discussing Israel's security. The warmth of Netanyahu's reaction is perhaps not surprising, given apparent strains in the relationship between Netanyahu and the Biden administration over the war in Gaza.
Stephen A. Smith, vocal yet hesitant supporter of Kamala Harris. What does he make of this outcome? The host of the Stephen A. Smith Show joins me now. Good to see you.
See you, my man.
Good to share this moment with you.
Yeah.
Surprise, of course, wound up losing by a little bit in a lot of places and a lot of demographics. Why to you?
Well, first of all, that's not how it looks to a lot of us. To you, somebody who's incredibly knowledgeable about this stuff, losing a little in a lot of different places. The way we look at it, we saw red all over the screen.
Spanked.
You need a Band-Aid, she got annihilated. That's how we look at it. I mean, she didn't win. We were predicting that the election was going to take days to decide, possibly into the weekend, and lo and behold, it took about 7 hours for us to learn, once the polls closed, that he was the president-elect of the United States. So that's what happened. And when you look at some of the issues, clearly not addressing the economy in a fashion that resonated, people talking about inflation, talking about their pockets, how you were going to address those things. I'm sure she attempted to articulate. I understood what message she was sending, but a lot of people weren't paying attention to it because, as I've said on many occasions, including sitting here with you, I know this much about minorities in this country. When it comes to black and brown folks in the United States of America, let me tell you something right now. We don't want to hear about percentages. We don't want to hear about, oh, inflation has dipped down to below 2% and all of that stuff. We're looking at the money in our pocket. How much does it cost to get gas? How much does it cost to buy groceries, to go out, eat dinner, et cetera, et cetera? How much money can we save? We look at that, and we were not impressed. Immigration was a huge, huge deal. For Biden to come out, and, you know, for him, day one, executive orders essentially opening the borders. For her to go on The View, which to me was a death knell. And speaking to Bill O'Reilly today, he had echoed that sentiment. They asked her, would she do anything different? And she said, not that I can think of. And when that happened, you just knew that she was in a world of trouble, because Trump knows how to utilize those things to his advantage. So it's about the economy. It's about immigration, and it's about the streets.
Those were both bad and on her watch.
That's right.
I mean, she had a tough task.
That's right. She
here.
did.
It's not just about her. It's that she wasn't able to overcome the challenge.
Absolutely. And she was put in a bad spot. I feel bad for her, because when you consider Joe Biden, and I know a lot of people were hesitant to get at him. She didn't want to throw him under the bus. But let's be real here. Let's be honest. He came into the presidency promising to be transitional, essentially a stopgap, okay? The next thing you know, they win the midterm elections. He's feeling himself, and suddenly he says, "I'm not going anywhere, even though I'm going to be around 82."
That's where the party screwed up.
And that's where the party messed up. And so as a result, he ended up staying longer. He wasn't exposed to a primary. They greased the skids.
That was a big hindsight's easy.
That's right.
Hindsight's easy.
Right.
But in the moment, you knew that they had handicapped her because they took away the democracy argument.
That's fair, but you could talk about hindsight is easy. But here's the reality, Chris. You and I were saying it long before the election. We were saying this is going to be a problem. And sure enough, it ended up being a problem. So all of those things being considered, in the end, it's sad that she went out this way. You would have liked to have seen a more competitive race. But America has spoken, and they have said they don't like what the left, particularly the progressives on the fringes of the left, have proposed to this country and what the Biden administration capitulated to. And that had her name written all over it as well, and that is why she will not be the 47th president of the United States.
What do you make of seeing so many in the media saying, they're not saying it like this, but this is the way I hear it, dumb black men and Latino men got duped by Trump? I feel like that's you not understanding what just happened here.
Yeah.
Nobody needs to tell somebody like you what systemic racism is.
Right. Exactly. And I voted for her, but people that have those opinions, they can kick rocks. They've never understood a lot of things about black folks in the United States of America, or Latinos for that matter, and that's why they're on the outside looking in on this particular day, because they just don't get it. You know, the reality is that you have an abundance of people, a lot of women included, who are hurt and incredibly furious that the outcome is what it is because they feel like the interest of the individual was put ahead of their interest. My response to that, sympathetically, with empathy, I would say, duh. What surprises you about that? People always put their own interest ahead of everybody else's.
After he picks his team, Trump will get down to business. America is dealing with a host of problems. Chief among them are the economy and illegal immigration. Trump based his campaign on these issues. He promised to fix them, and that's why he was elected for a second term. So what will he tackle first? Where will he start? Let's go through what the first 100 days of his second term could look like, starting with day one.
We're going to turn it around. It's going to happen really fast, too. Two things. We're going to, first hour, we can do many things in the first, but first, we're going to drill, baby, drill.
Drill, baby, drill was Trump's war cry throughout the election campaign. It was a solution to fix the economy, lower the energy prices, and bring drilling jobs back to the U.S. Trump says he will expedite drilling permits, clear any pending pipeline projects, and increase the sales of offshore drilling rights for oil and gas. It's a drastic departure from Joe Biden's green policies. But Trump is having none of that. His return means that a return to old-school fossil fuel exploitation in overdrive. And he says that he will enable all of this as soon as he takes office. Then comes the other big challenge, migration. Trump has day one plans for that too.
On November 5th, 2024, this will be Liberation Day in America. It's going to be Liberation. On day one, I will launch the largest deportation program in American history.
Trump has a two-pronged approach to deal with the migration problem. First, getting rid of illegal immigrants who are already in the U.S. with a massive deportation drive. Trump says that he will round up all undocumented migrants and kick them out. Can he really do that? Well, it is possible because Trump has an ace up his sleeve.
I'll invoke the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. Did you know that? I had to go back that far. We couldn't find anything because modern day politicians, even sort of old time, nobody had the courage of these original people.
Trump had to go very far back, but he found a law that could allow him to deport people. America's Alien Enemies Act from 1798. Trump and his advisors have done their homework, and they think that this law will help them execute their deportation plan on day one. So that's the first prong of his plan to deal with illegal immigration. The second is making Mexico a buffer.
But now we have a new president in Mexico. Supposed a very nice woman, they say. I haven't met her. And I'm going to inform her on day one or sooner that if they don't stop this onslaught of criminals and drugs coming into our country, I'm going to immediately impose a 25% tariff on everything they send in to the United States of America.
Trump plans to fortify America's southern border to stop new illegal immigrants from getting in. He plans to bring back his Remain in Mexico program, forcing asylum seekers to wait in Mexico while their applications get processed. But for that, the Mexican government must cooperate. And here's how he will ensure that. Tighten the economic screws and keep raising tariffs until Mexico gives in. Trump has promised to do all of this on just day one. It is an ambitious agenda, but his team says they're ready. They're preparing a set of executive orders, presidential decrees that he can sign on day one in office to get the ball rolling. After this, his plans will get executed the old-fashioned way, via Congress. Trump's Republican Party has already flipped the U.S. Senate. They may retain control of the House of Representatives too. We're waiting for those results. If that happens, they get the trifecta. Control of both houses of Congress plus the presidency. The Republican Party will control all these three arms of government. Then nothing can stop Trump from passing the laws that he wants. If that happens, we can also expect tax cuts. Within days of Trump taking charge, Republican Congress leaders are reportedly circulating this letter. It shows that tax cuts are on top of the agenda. There will be other important issues to address too, but tax cuts, drilling and deportation are the focus of Trump's first 100 days in office.
To reduce spending to live within our means. Yeah, that necessarily involves some temporary hardship, but it will ensure long-term prosperity.
Hear that? That's Elon Musk on a virtual town hall promising Americans that they can expect temporary hardship if Donald Trump is elected president. Since basically taking over Trump's campaign a few weeks ago, Musk has been laser focused on priming voters to expect deep, painful spending cuts in the event Trump takes office. And now, he's not even bothering to sugarcoat it. So what temporary hardships are we looking at? Cuts to Social Security and Medicare? Check. Abolishing the Affordable Care Act's protection for pre-existing conditions? Definitely. Further rollbacks of our reproductive freedoms in states nationwide? Check. Forcibly detaining and deporting up to 20 million people? Separating law-abiding families whose children are U.S. citizens? It's also coming. It's been reported Trump is even considering Musk for some made-up role of government efficiency guru if he wins. If so, Musk could personally oversee how trillions of dollars in our federal budget are spent or slashed. And the most f***ed up part, this is also Trump and his allies can pass a humongous tax cut that benefits billionaires like Musk most of all. Ask yourself, do you honestly think Elon Musk is including himself when he says voters should brace for temporary hardships next year? And if not, what does that say about his intentions for you and your loved ones?